as I the power of our stories. Please help me welcome to the stage none other than our local. We had to bring Vegas into this platform and at this stage. Welcome Eddie O'Reilly. Vegas in the house.
What if there was a way to tune in to our internal guidance system? What if there was a method that we could apply and use every day to guide us? When I was a junior in high school, I had an epiphany and a realization. You see, I was raised in a house where my mom was bipolar and my dad was there, but he was not really part of my life. And every day I'd come home from school and I'd have to tiptoe into the house because I didn't know what mom I was gonna get. Was she gonna be happy today? Or was she gonna be angry? And the anger showed up in verbal aggression and physical aggression. And this one day I came home, it was snowing outside, and she wasn't in a good space. And at that point, I had felt that life was just too hard. It was too hard. I was young, and it was already too hard. And I took myself outside. I decided today I wanted to die. I'm done. This is too hard. I don't get it. I'm done. And I laid in a 3-foot snowbank, no shoes, no coat, and I laid there with the snow falling on my face, wondering how long it would take for me to die. And this voice pops into my head and said, "There is so much more to life. Get out of the snow and get back in the house." And I listened to it. And it was the first time I had realized that I was actually being guided. And I didn't let go of that voice again. During high school, I then started being of service. I was guided to be of service to others. I was the youngest hospice volunteer in our tiny little town while I was in high school. After high school, I went on to college, the first one in my family to go to college. And I volunteered as a court-appointed special advocate for abused and neglected children. I volunteered at the probation department, and I volunteered for a water project for Nicaragua. During that water project, part of the project was to go to Nicaragua, immerse yourself in the culture, and build a well. While I was there, I was introduced to 2 Peace Corps volunteers. For those of you that are not from this country, Peace Corps is an opportunity to volunteer, be of service in developing countries for skills that you have but that country doesn't have. So I picked these two guys' brains. What is Peace Corps? Why are you doing it? What are you getting out of it? After that experience, I decided I wanted to be a Peace Corps volunteer. So for the rest of my college years, I worked to doing whatever it was required to volunteer. I was placed in a country called Vanuatu. Those from Australia or New Zealand may know. It is in the South Pacific. I served for 3 years. All the while, I allowed this voice to guide me. And I knew it was guidance from more than myself because it always felt good. It was a positive voice constantly in my life. After Peace Corps, I went back to school for Ayurvedic medicine, which is an ancient healing system from India. I also studied yoga and meditation. After I finished Ayurvedic college, I went to India, where I studied with Ayurvedic doctors and took the opportunity to volunteer at 2 Mother Teresa orphanages to help children in the orphanages while I was in India. Coming home, I volunteered to live, mind you, I'm being guided all this time, do this, okay. I volunteered volunteered in an ashram, which is like a Hindu monastery, where I was able to apply my Ayurvedic medicine, yoga, and meditation. And actually, that's where I met my husband. Now, my husband is from Ireland. He came to take our yoga teacher training course. And from there, we moved to Ireland, where I opened up an Ayurvedic clinic, again being guided and teaching yoga and meditation. Now, I tell you all this because I want you to realize that I actually was listening to this voice all along and guiding myself, but it wasn't until I moved back to the States and had my third son that I actually realized there was a method to learning and teaching others how they can tune into their emotional guidance system and allow it to guide them through their life. So what if happiness were actually a choice? And what if you are in control? What if you have the power to create your own happiness? If you had seen me Halloween 2013, you would have found me out to here pregnant with my third son, Connor. Now, I didn't know it at that time, but I was about to understand the most important lesson of my life. That Halloween, I was getting my other two boys ready to go trick-or-treating. Owen was in kindergarten, and he was a Batman. Krishna was in second grade, and he was Spider-Man. And I remember having a thought, what if next year I had my own little threesome of superheroes? It was a fun thought. 2 weeks later began my worst nightmare. Connor was born with multiple severe health issues. His lungs would not absorb oxygen, and his heart had multiple defects. He was immediately taken away from me, placed in a drug-induced coma, and put on life support. Wow. For 152 days, we lived in the neonatal intensive care unit. And for 152 days, that's 5 long months, Connor struggled to survive. It was during this, the most difficult time of my life, that I had a flashback to when I lived in an ashram, and I had first been introduced to the concept that we can create our own happiness. I had no clue what that meant when I first heard it. But actually that night, I got it. And I realized that I can apply 3 steps to help myself, to change myself, to be happy. The first step is to be aware of how your feelings are in relation to what you're thinking, connecting that mind and body. The second step is to choose to feel better. And the third step is to take inspired action. So having come up with this method, I decided to apply it in my life. We have been living in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment since we moved here to Vegas. I mean, this apartment was so small, it was like Mouse House small. It was really small. Step 1, how did I feel about this house? Actually, apartment. I felt claustrophobic, frustrated. I didn't feel like I could breathe in it. It was just, ugh. Step 2, I decided to change how I felt about it. And step 3, I took inspired action. I imagined what it would be like if we had a bigger house, if we all had our own space. And I focused on that. I focused on that big house, the bigger space, not looking back at that 2-bedroom apartment again in a negative way. 5 months later, we moved into a 4-bedroom house with plenty of space for all of us. Woo! I decided to apply my 3-step method when it came to my vehicle. How did I feel about my vehicle? Now, I've been driving around this beautiful minivan, and every time I got in it, I worried if I was going to make it to the place I wanted to go. So I was fearful and anxious every time I got in that van. Step 2, I decided to change how I felt about my car. And step 3, I took inspired action. I imagined what it would be like if I had a brand new car. I could smell that new exterior. I imagined going places farther than Vegas Valley, knowing that we could travel and camp. 3 months later, I got a brand new car. This lesson didn't come easy though. It came with a lot of pain. That night in the hospital, after 152 days of my baby trying to survive, he contracted bacterial meningitis. It couldn't get any worse. And that night, as I was absorbing what was going on around me, I remember feeling it all inside of me. I just felt it all inside of me. I could feel the anxiety, the worry, and the fear. And I looked out into his room and I could see all his monitors going off alarming, constantly alerting us to his poor vital signs. The doctor approached me and asked me if I wanted to take him off life support and let him go peacefully. The nurse and the social worker came up to me and asked me what religion I was, and asked me if I wanted to call in a priest to give him his last rites. It was bad. And it was so negative. There was no hope in that room whatsoever. And all of that just sitting inside of me, I could just feel it. I was so consciously aware of it, just balled up inside of me. And in that moment, I said, I want to feel better. I remembered you create your own happiness. I want to feel better. And that's all it took. I want to feel better. As soon as I decided I wanted to feel better, that voice I had depended on all my life that I actually forgot about in those 5 months came back into my head and said, Edie, what if this is happening for you? And what if there are blessings here that you aren't seeing? When I considered those two questions, I could feel that ball of yuck that had been sitting there for 152 days gone. I felt lighter. And all at once I felt the perfection of the moment. I knew that nothing had gone wrong. It was all happening for me. I was completely at peace when I left the hospital that night. Whether Connor lived or died, I was good. The next morning upon returning, I was actually shocked at what I saw. Connor had improved through the night. They were already weaning him off of his meds. And I couldn't help but think, what if whatever I had done last night not only helped me, but impacted my son too? You see, we all go through challenging times. It is those times that give us the opportunity to grow. When I was able to see his life is happening for me, I released the angst and resistance in my body, and the lessons unfolded. We are all being guided, every single one of us. And there is a method that we can all use to apply that guidance in our life every single day. You are powerful beings that have come here to create your reality and to live your best self in your happiness. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that message.